Ever wonder what happens when you mix hot lava and chicken?
Zegler didn't just brush it off. She broke down. The confrontation with Jack Black wasn't a casual disagreement. It was a full-blown moment of reckoning. It happened during a quiet break in filming, away from the cameras, but not away from ears. Black, known for his playful energy and rarely seen engaging in conflict, approached Zegler not with jokes, but with facts. He spoke firmly, his tone stripped of sarcasm. He told her that her combative attitude toward the fans wasn't helping. It was hurting the film. Publicly mocking the original story, dismissing loyal Disney audiences as outdated, and posting flippant clips online wasn't bold.
Go something like this.
Chicken
It was alienating. Black wasn't cruel. He was direct, but that honesty cut deep. Zegler stood frozen. Crew members nearby caught the tension instantly. She tried to respond, but her voice cracked mid-sentence. Her hands trembled as her face flushed red. According to those who saw it unfold, she clenched her jaw, trying to hold it together, but the pressure was overwhelming. She had already been spiraling under the weight of relentless online attacks, fan petitions demanding she be recast, and behind-the-scenes whispers that Disney executives were losing faith in her. But this moment, hearing it from someone like Jack Black, someone respected, beloved, and undeniably influential, was the final hit she couldn't dodge. She stormed off set, not to her trailer, not back to makeup. She left the lot completely. Reports say she was sobbing uncontrollably, shielding her face with a hoodie as she was driven away. Security was notified. Filming was paused. Her team issued a quiet statement the next day calling it an emotional day, but everyone on set knew exactly what had happened. A full emotional collapse, a breakdown.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird.
Her disappearance after the incident wasn't a coincidence. She skipped scheduled promotional appearances and went silent online for days. Insiders at Disney scrambled to do damage control. A leaked memo showed internal discussions about re-editing her interviews to avoid divisive moments. Some executives even floated the idea of pushing the release date again, but it was too late. Fans quickly caught wind of the story. Reddit threads exploded. YouTubers broke it down frame by frame. Her Instagram activity was dissected like a crime scene. What she deleted, what she left up, what cryptic captions might mean. Even major outlets began reporting on her erratic behavior. What had started as whispers about production trouble had now exploded into a full-blown PR nightmare, with Zegler at the center. This wasn't just a bad day at work, it was the moment a rising star publicly unraveled under the weight of a billion-dollar machine, and the industry watched it happen in real time. Things spiraled faster than anyone inside Disney could contain. After Rachel Zegler's emotional breakdown on set, triggered by Jack Black's brutal confrontation, the dominoes began to fall.
Minecraft in the United States in one weekend made more money than Snow White has made globally after 3 weekends.
Production was thrown into chaos. Scenes scheduled for the next day were either delayed or canceled entirely. Cast members were instructed not to comment publicly. Even crew members were reportedly warned to keep phones off and mouths shut. But the damage wasn't something you could cover up. The energy on set had shifted. What had already been a tense, bloated production now felt like it was unraveling in real time. Zegler's disappearance from promotional duties was immediate and absolute. Scheduled interviews with Good Morning America, The Tonight Show, and several international outlets were canceled within 48 hours. A press junket in London was scrapped with no explanation. Her name was scrubbed from certain marketing materials. Industry insiders noticed it instantly. Disney was pulling her back, keeping her away from cameras while they scrambled to spin the narrative. Quietly, they began pushing Gal Gadot, who played the evil queen, into more media appearances, hoping to distract from the growing controversy. But online, the storm only grew louder. TikTok exploded with side-by-side comparisons of Zegler's past comments and Jack Black's alleged outburst. YouTubers published hour-long breakdowns of her public behavior, claiming her attitude was entitled, disrespectful, or worse.
Snow White, the toe-curlingly terrible live-action remake, has bombed so hard at the box office that even Paul Tassi had to admit it. It got $43 million, and there are very few ways to spin that.
Reddit sleuths dug into every interview, every deleted tweet, every red carpet appearance. They treated her social media like a crime scene. Videos of Zegler speaking about feminism, princess tropes, and being a modern woman were clipped out of context and reshared endlessly, fueling the narrative that she had insulted Disney's legacy and the fans who made it timeless. Back at the studio, things were equally unstable. A confidential production report leaked to entertainment outlets showed that reshoots had gone wildly over budget, with some sequences being filmed up to 4 times. The final cut had been pieced together hastily, with scenes rearranged so often that continuity errors became impossible to avoid. Editors were working overtime, some allegedly sleeping at the studio to meet deadlines, but morale was in the gutter. One VFX artist reportedly walked off the project entirely after producers requested they de-age Zegler's appearance in post-production to create a more whimsical tone. The legal team was on high alert. Lawyers combed through NDAs and internal communications, bracing for leaks or lawsuits.
It does seem like the media have got the throw her under the bus green light, though, when we're posting things like this. We're slagging her off behind the scenes, we're dropping all the information, and then reminding you of, her attacking the majority of the population of America when she posted F the Orange Man.
At one point, Disney's PR division prepared a contingency statement in the event Zegler chose to publicly exit the press tour altogether. Rumors swirled that executives were even considering a soft pull of the film's global release, limiting its theatrical run in major markets to avoid international embarrassment. And yet, despite the chaos, Zegler never publicly addressed the breakdown or the Jack Black confrontation. Her silence became its own statement. Fans speculated whether she had been gagged by contract or was simply retreating from the spotlight to protect her mental health. Still, every day she stayed silent, the narrative took on a life of its own. The movie wasn't just a failure. It had become a symbol of what happens when studio ambition, bad press, and unchecked ego collide in full view of the public. And Disney, a company known for controlling its image with an iron grip, had lost control. Completely. In the weeks that followed Rachel Zegler's disappearance from the spotlight, Snow White transformed from a Hollywood misfire into a full-blown industry cautionary tale. What had started as a reimagining of a beloved classic had now become a haunting symbol of modern studio arrogance. And Zegler, once hailed as Disney's next princess powerhouse, was nowhere to be found.
So did you go directly from West Side? Like, did you have to audition for Snow White, or like, oh, they saw you in West Side Story, they're like, you're Snow White?
West Side Story was kind of nowhere near coming out. We were about like 6 months away from release, and no footage had been seen.
Her absence was deafening. Not a single live stream, red carpet, or press appearance. No tweets, no Instagram stories, no interviews. The face of the film had vanished, and Disney's PR machine was left scrambling to fill the void with silence. Audiences noticed, and so did the media. Entertainment news outlets ran headlines like, "Where is Rachel Zegler?" and "Snow White's vanishing star," while podcasts dissected her social silence like it was a true crime case. Paparazzi failed to catch a glimpse of her for over a month. Fans speculated whether she had been hospitalized, was under psychiatric care, or had simply left the country. But the real story was more chilling. Zegler had been cut out of her own film's final push. Internally, Disney execs made the decision to pivot focus away from her entirely, shifting marketing strategy to emphasize Gal Gadot's villainous queen.
You see yourself as the evil queen. You are not evil. You are not evil. You're a queen, but you're not evil. What was it like seeing yourself as the evil queen for the first time?
We did not see the clip.
The film's costumes, visual effects, and the legacy of the original. Zegler was effectively erased, a quiet exile for damage control. But social media wouldn't let her go. Clips of her earlier interviews resurfaced constantly, one in particular where she said, "People will always show up for me, no matter what I do." That quote alone became a meme, edited onto empty theaters, flop posters, and even fan-made trailers of Snow White with laugh tracks layered over. It was brutal. She became the punchline of a joke she couldn't respond to. Every silence, every non-response, every deleted post only added more fuel to the fire. And behind that fire was a fandom betrayed, and a studio too proud to admit they had completely miscalculated. Meanwhile, early box office numbers were a bloodbath. On opening weekend, Snow White pulled in less than $18 million domestically, a catastrophic figure for a film with a reported $210 million production budget, not including marketing. Overseas numbers were even worse, with major markets like the UK, Germany, and Japan slashing screenings after turnout fell below minimums.
Just last week, the media and the shill influencers were trying to do everything they could to save Snow White from being a complete and total flop in the box office, and they failed miserably. This movie is already a complete and total disaster, and it is so bad that now even the media has to admit.
In several cities, showings were canceled entirely due to zero pre-sold tickets. Inside Disney, emergency meetings were held to assess the fallout. Executives reviewed analytics, focus group data, and even TikTok trends to understand where it had all gone wrong. But the truth was staring them in the face. The audience had turned against them. They didn't just dislike the film, they rejected it. And Zegler, fairly or unfairly, had become the face of that rejection. By the third week, theaters began pulling the film. Some reduced it to one matinee slot. Others replaced it with surprise reruns of older Disney hits like Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin, which ironically drew in more ticket sales than the brand new Snow White. Disney had failed to protect its legacy, and in doing so, it had put a young actress in the direct line of fire, then abandoned her the moment things went sideways. And Rachel Zegler? She was left to carry the blame. Not the directors, not the screenwriters, not the executives who greenlit the controversial script and the marketing plan that mocked its own fan base. No, the burden landed squarely on her shoulders. And she carried it alone, in silence, with the weight of a collapsing empire pressing down. By the time Snow White limped out of its final weeks in theaters, the damage was irreversible.
Rachel Zegler then inexplicably continued to post herself in an empty theater for her own movie. She's literally the only person there. Meanwhile, the experience at Minecraft,
not just to the film, but to Rachel Zegler's career, Disney's brand reputation, and the entire Hollywood remake machine. And as the credits rolled on empty screens across the country, one thing had become painfully clear. This wasn't just a box office failure. This was a cultural implosion. Zegler's silence continued. She didn't post a single statement addressing the film's performance, the breakdown, or the viral Jack Black confrontation. Her official accounts remained mostly dormant, save for a few generic reposts from unrelated causes. Behind the scenes, her team reportedly pushed Disney for support, to publicly back her, to dispel the rumors, to protect her from the increasingly vicious online attacks. But Disney said nothing. Executives were too focused on redirecting attention to upcoming projects, eager to bury Snow White under a mountain of new content. Zegler had become radioactive, and no one in power was willing to get burned standing beside her. She wasn't just left out of the spotlight, she was blacklisted from it. Studios that had previously expressed interest in casting her quietly pulled back. Streaming platforms removed her name from early casting grids.
Snow White reviews are in. Snow White, how shall we say? Data points are in, because we now know that it was a flop.
A major magazine profile she had shot months earlier was shelved indefinitely, deemed too risky. Industry agents began advising clients not to attach themselves to her publicly. Her name became synonymous with controversy, not because of a scandal, but because she had become the face of Hollywood's most aggressive flop in recent memory. And yet, the narrative around her wasn't simply young star in a bad movie. It was harsher, it was more personal. Comment sections and social feeds swarmed with vitriol, accusing her of arrogance, of sabotaging the film, of mocking tradition, and alienating fans. Every quote she had made, however mild or misinterpreted, was used as evidence that she had deserved the fallout. Even well-meaning fans who tried to defend her were drowned out by a tidal wave of online cruelty. Meanwhile, Jack Black, who had gone viral for his part in the alleged on-set clash, remained eerily quiet. No statements, no interviews, no denials. And in that silence, his reputation only grew. The internet painted him as the reluctant hero who had tried to speak truth to power. Whether or not the confrontation happened exactly as reported no longer mattered.
This thing was a disaster. It only made $43 million at the box office, which is really bad for a movie like this. I don't have the numbers at the top of my head, but I want to tell you, Cinderella, which was a number of years ago, don't forget how much inflation has happened.
The perception had become reality, and Rachel Zegler had lost control of the narrative completely. The larger industry took notes. Other studios, watching Disney's fall from grace, began quietly reassessing their remake strategies. At internal meetings, the words "Don't do a Snow White" were reportedly used as a warning. Projects that had once leaned heavily into subversive, revisionist storytelling suddenly toned things down. Focus groups were brought in earlier. Executives reviewed old scripts with fresh eyes, terrified of making the same mistake. And while Disney moved on, burying Snow White behind press releases for Marvel's next big gamble and a Star Wars reboot, Zegler had to figure out how to rebuild. But no apology came, no redemption arc, no dramatic return to the red carpet, just silence. A young actress, once crowned the next face of the Disney legacy, now reduced to a ghost in an industry that moves fast and forgets even faster. In the end, the real tragedy wasn't just that Snow White failed. It was how it failed, loudly, painfully, and in full view of the world. A fairy tale that was supposed to reimagine a princess for a new generation instead became a modern parable about pride, pressure, and public downfall. And Rachel Zegler, whether she earned it or not, became the tragic figure at its center.